What makes a story good? Furthermore, what makes a story worth telling? These questions should always be at the forefront of any writer, actor, or director's mind. When we are putting together stories, who are we writing for? And for what purpose? These seem like simple and nearly redundant questions, but they are, in my opinion, the most important questions we could ask. To start us off, I want to dive into a childhood favorite of mine that is trying to redefine its legacy. That is the Halo TV series. I am not going to hide the ball on this. As much as I look at the Halo series with rose-tinted glasses, I have to acknowledge my worst fears. It is Halo in name only. Now, that may come off as dramatic, but please hear me out and then leave your opinions of rage or agreeance for afterward. In order to tell you why I think this TV series called Halo is bad, I want to start with a brief understanding of the original game series. Halo Combat Evolved, Halo 2, and Halo 3 are the undeniable origin of this universe that first captured the hearts and minds of an entire gaming generation. The online play was revolutionary, and most importantly, the story was one that seemingly anyone could relate to. The story of Halo and the Master Chief can be hastily described as a story of survival, discovery, and courage to face the impossible. Master Chief's story uncovers mystery as we journey with him against a religious cult called the Covenant that sees all humans as heretical to their gods. This belief is why the Covenant ruthlessly kill any and all humans as they search for relics of their gods, whom we would come to know as Forerunners. At the point in time that our story with the Chief begins, humanity is on its last legs. World after human world has been found and destroyed by the Covenant, and most recently their strategic command world called Reach has just fallen, thus leaving Earth as one of the only human planets left to fend for itself. However, in a guided stroke of luck, Cortana, Chief's AI and basically best friend throughout the series, sends their ship through slipspace as they flee Reach towards a destination where they do not know what awaits them. This is where we find Halo, and our journey begins. It is here that John fights the Covenant and begins to discover a greater evil in the origin and purpose of the ring world they landed on. As the series unfolds, we come to know Chief as a man of few words who never loses sight of his mission to protect humanity. Additionally, we watch the Chief fight side by side with his companion Cortana, who is given the same task to protect humanity. But more personally, they are tasked to protect each other. He the bronze and she the brains. It's this relationship built in the solitude of their journey that brings John's character to life. In many ways, we see Cortana as more full of life and humor, as Chief seems almost more machine than man. This gets us back to those silly questions I was asking earlier. Why is this story good? And why is it worth telling? The answer to that question is rather simple, but also complex. The Halo story reflects on what is humanity and what it means to be human. Humanity is put on the brink of destruction. Then, an enhanced super soldier, alongside his artificial intelligence companion, are what ultimately save them. Despite the fact that these two are seen as subhuman or even superhuman by outsiders, we get to see how very human and vulnerable they actually are. This is why the story lands. This is why it's good. So what about the Halo TV series then? Well, it's not that. I wish I could just leave it there, but then I'd be doing you a disservice. So to start, I will give a disclaimer. I have watched the first 3 episodes of the series, so at this point I am up to date. But as the season continues, I cannot definitively say that my perspective is going to be correct moving forward, of course. That being said, fundamentally they have undermined almost the entirety of the original plot. Yes, we have an alien foe called the Covenant, but based on the fact that we haven't focused on their very real and foreboding threat to humanity, they feel like a secondary villain. Instead, we focus on what everyone wants. Politics. Politics within the UNSC. Politics within rebels. Politics between the rebels and the UNSC. Politics with the Spartans. Politics between Spartans and rebels. Politics between the Spartans and the UNSC. Gosh, growing up and making my way through hordes of intimidating aliens and trying to protect life as we know it sure would take a back seat if I could just watch a couple more minutes of space politics. My point is, the story needs to start from a base point of familiarity in order to have a chance at telling the same worthwhile story. You can only change so many aspects about the source material before it becomes something else entirely. Primarily, the struggle of humanity should be front and center, and political notes popping up as they did in the games and books alongside it. This issue is amplified as integral characters are whole cloth changed to fit a new narrative. I'm talking about Captain Keyes and Miranda Keyes, not being even in remotely the same positions that define them as characters in the games. Halsey, in my opinion, however, is actually pretty accurate and I have no complaints. There, I said something nice. But, Lord, let that contrast the bastardization of Parangosky. In the original series, she is very old, but even more so cunning and never caught off guard. However, now in the series, she gets one-upped by Halsey by the second episode and looks very weak as a character. I don't want to get bogged down with all the character differences for this video, as that would take too long. So my last point is about Cortana and the new character I believe is pronounced Maki. First, Cortana, who is now being advertised as a control for Spartans capable of tampering with their brain and consciousness to the UNSC's will. Well, where I can see the benefits of delving into the darker side of AI, it is also wholly unnecessary and actually takes away from what should be the story. That is, the relationship between Cortana and Chief. She also manifests life size, which directly undermines an important emotional moment between Chief and Cortana, as she does exactly this for the first time on screen with Chief as she sacrifices herself to save him. Then, with Maki, we now have a human held in high esteem by the Covenant, actively working against the humans. This unravels the gravity and cult-like behavior that is the Covenant. It was the ease of using Forerunner technology by the humans and the implications of what that meant that made the hierarchs of the Covenant brand them as heretics and then seek humanity's ultimate destruction. Maki's character is again a needless plot point added that takes away from the story in an effort to drum up dramatic effect, as well as, in my opinion, bring about this chosen one status between Neo and Trinity. Oh, wait, I mean Chief and Maki. Sorry, I'm getting these plot points mixed up. Wink, wink. What makes this new alternate Halo story good? What makes it worth telling? At this point, I genuinely don't know, and I don't think the writers do either. It's as if we are being taken into the Halo universe only to be shown the dark parts of humanity without showing us what they are even fighting to protect. I see the Halo fanbase torn in two. One side refusing to get on board with changing their beloved characters, and the other half so starved for Halo content that they are happy to finally have a mainstream Halo series to watch. I'm not here to judge the fanbase, though I clearly land on one side of this issue. I'm here to point out that Halo is no longer what it once was, and it may never be again. This I put on those who produced the series, not the fans. Keep that in mind moving forward, and let me know what you think.